All right, so we're back here on the workbench. Since we have the flywheel out, rebuilding the motor, we're going to go ahead and replace the clutch. The flywheel itself is in pretty good condition. There's no cracking, no deep gouging, nothing that would require replacement of the flywheel. It just has some heat marks. You can see a few little heat checks and stuff in there. So what we're going to do is actually resurface this flywheel, regrind the flywheel. Now this is kind of a special flywheel. It has a step built into it. So the area where the pressure plate sits and the area where the clutch disc, the friction area is two different levels. So when we cut the friction surface, we need to also cut up here to basically keep that same distance, the step at the same height. So we're going to take a measuring device. This is a depth micrometer, and we're going to use it to measure the depth so that we can replicate the depth that is in here. So go ahead and do that. Okay, and I've got 70 thousandths, so give or take, 5 or so, that would be good enough, but 70 thousandths is what we're going to try to replicate. All right, it also has these dowel pins that align the pressure plate. We need to pull those dowel pins out, so I have my dowel pin puller set, which is a Calvan Tools. I think I bought this off of eBay. It's a really good set, but it has a collet, lots of different sizes of collets for the right, for your application. You find the right one, it slides nice and snug over the dowel pin, and then the bottom of the collet's tapered. And what that does is there's a sleeve that goes next. It's also tapered and it squishes the collet together around the dowel pin. So you take this little threaded rod here, screw it down, and then, go this way. Tighten it up really good so that it bites into the dowel pin. Okay, that should do the job. You have this sleeve that goes over the whole thing and basically pulls this assembly up away from the flywheel. So that'll go on, and then a nut on top, and then a wrench. Good pound. Okay, that's it. The dowel pin is out and it's captured here in my tool. I'll remove it from the tool and there it is. So basically I'll just do that to the other two. Take the flywheel over to the grinder and show you what that looks like. Alright, so I got the flywheel set up in the flywheel grinder. It's hard to see with all the guards and stuff in place, but hopefully you can see that. That's the grinding wheel that's going to cut the surface of the flywheel. So let me start everything up. Turn the table on. It's kind of loud, I know. So I'm going to touch off lightly on the flywheel. See how that looks. Almost there we go. Yeah, it's a little light touch off. More to go. Alright, so you can see just after a little bit of cutting, the clutch friction surface is nice and true. It only took about 4 thousandths of an inch. So I'm going to go and move my cutter, the grinding wheel, over to cut the top part there. So let me go ahead and reposition and make sure it's not contacting. It looks good. Lock that in. Turn the table on, turn the grinder on, and basically trim it the same amount. should be it. I'll make the measurement and see if that's right, but that should be it. Alright, so we're back here in the workbench. And just got to reinstall the dowel pins back in the same location they came out of, so just tap them back into the hole. Now I wanted to take a moment to explain why the grinding process of grinding a flywheel. Why do we need to grind it over just using a lathe or something to cut it with a cutting tip, carbide cutter? The reason is because the nature of the flywheel is heat. It generates a lot of heat during the clutch process, you know, where friction and slipping. So the flywheel gets really hot, and that heat tends to create hot spots. So it's very normal for your flywheel to have hot marks all over the flywheel. And what that is the material itself, after being heated really, really hot, have actually hardened. There are little hard spots throughout the flywheel, little circles. You can see them sometimes as hard spots. Now, if you were to try to cut that with a lathe, what will end up happening is the cutting tool itself will basically bounce and jump over those hard spots. You'll end up with a surface that's not true. It's kind of wavy. The grinder, however, will grind through that. So when you're done, I mean, it looks beautiful, other than my dirty fingers all over it. It does a great job grinding through all those hot spots, and to the point where they're, in this case, gone. This wasn't that bad to begin with. So anyways, the grinder is the way to go on a flywheel. You just make sure you have somebody who knows how to set it up properly, because if you put the flywheel in the machine crooked and it's spinning, what will end up happening is it'll cut itself crooked, and you'll end up with a lot of clutch chatter. So you don't want chatter, meaning when you let the clutch off, the whole car shakes and jumps because it's grabbing and not grabbing and grabbing and not grabbing. You want it to be very true. So anyways, flywheel grinder is where it's at. Find somebody who knows how to do it. Yeah.